first things first, tell us about your background, because you have an extensive background, and not just cannabis, but just as a chef, you've got such an impressive resume.
Thank you. I work really hard in the area of food to understand it as best I can. Because the more I understand it, the better food that I can make and the more people I can help. I started very early on. I mean, very early. Like I was attached to my mother, watching her cook as this little babushka on her, chest. And I was always the kid in the kitchen, getting the hand slapped because I was too close to the stove or too close to the grill. I was always that inquisitive when it came to food. And I don't think I lost that nature. I still get slapped sometimes in the kitchen. But no, it's started very early on. I knew I wanted to be a chef. In high school, I think I was maybe 15 or 16, actually, when I started rock climbing. My rock climbing buddy, he was a friend of a group and we all got connected. So there was usually a large group of us, but he ended up being an instructor at Le Cordon Bleu. And he also, ironically, worked at my first jobs where I was bartending. And when I was bartending, he would be in the kitchen. So we knew each other quite well. But finally, one day, he's like, "You spend more time in the kitchen asking me specials and what I put into it than you do at your bar." And he's like, either quit and go to culinary school, or it's just that simple, actually, because he's like, "I don't know that you have another choice." He's like, "You are on the wrong side of the kitchen." So I took his advice, Paul, who I'm always grateful to, and I went to Le Cordon Bleu. And I graduated with honors, which I was so proud of, because I kind of struggled in high school because I couldn't touch. I talk with my hands. I think with my hands. Cooking is an extension of your hands, as much as an extension of your heart and your mind. That's what I love, is that no matter your training, you always have it in you. You just have to have somebody bring it out. So once I got into Le Cordon Bleu, I went into professional kitchens. And professional kitchens, I was doing Mediterranean, Italian style, saute, broil. I mean, you have to start somewhere. So of course I was in the back starting at prep. And believe me, I have my onions and potatoes and pork tenderloin portions under my belt. And I earned it. And I was proud of that. I was the shortest girl in the kitchen, but I held my own. And from there, though, I knew when I was working on the line, and when you're taught in a French culinary school, fat is flavor. That's true. But I always felt like I was, I could offer more to the guest. And I saw the guests. I worked in an open kitchen. So I don't know why, but there was always this little voice. Maybe it was my Jewish mother. And she's a dietitian and my dad's a doctor. And I grew up in a healthy environment. And healthy didn't mean diet, it didn't mean this. It just meant well-rounded, or it meant something different to me. And I wanted to explore that. And I didn't know if I wanted to go to school for it right away, but what I ended up doing was I transferred to a job doing R&D at General Mills after plentiful years in the restaurants, as well as a pastry position at a high-end grocery store. For the first time I remember, it was like, oh my God, the grocery store is carpeted. So I was in charge of doing the pastry case in the morning. And it was, those two jobs were so pivotal to me because they offered like a creative expression as well as a regimented formulation. At General Mills, it was by the book. I was the youngest person by at least 15 years. So I came in with this exuberance and wanted to bring something new, which was great because I was in the new meals department. But it's many years of entrenched rules and this and that. So the combination of the creative expression and the regimented General Mills way of life became what I now do every day. in cannabis and CBD. And I never knew that, because what I was doing, I felt like I was ping-ponging from these jobs, but really the universe was kind of setting me up for my career in cannabis. So I love that. And throughout my year now, I have gone through nutrition, got organic chemistry, biochemistry, nutrition, pastry school, chocolate school. I love learning, by the way. I always, always, always feel like no matter how many schools I've gone to or talks I've gone to, there's more to learn. And from anybody.
So just
Yeah.
before we get onto the cannabis side of things, what was chocolate school like? I want to know what that was like, that there is a place that you can learn to do this.
It was delicious. So all my stories have a funny story to lead me there, because I never think to do these things on my own. Well, I do, but it's like a little nugget in the back of my brain. I have a good friend who I met through my brother, who is a cowboy. Like, he does rodeos. He did them. He won. He has plentiful like belts and things. And it's so different than my life. And I was like, I love this. And I love everything about what you do. But there is a complete opposite side to this man. Half of the year he's doing rodeos, and I won't use the language that he uses on a regular basis in the barn, but half of the other year he goes to France and he travels and he learns about chocolate. During the rodeo events that he would do, he would bring his other competitors, because he was bored, he'd cook with his mother chocolate. He became fascinated. Now he is this amazing chocolatier cowboy. I love it. And so I wanted him to teach me more, but I realized what he had learned was a learned, he had years of mastery that I was trying to consume in an hour's time. And I didn't want to take advantage of my friend, nor did I want to waste his time, but I wanted that for myself. Mm-hmm. So I did. And I traveled all around. And then finally, when I was in Berlin, and I enrolled in this, oh my God, between the flowing chocolate and the accents and the students and the amount of passion I learned for it, but I learned just enough of the tricks of the trade that when I came back to the States and continued my courses, whether they be online or in person, I then brought it to everywhere I went. I added it into the wedding cakes I was doing. I did not grow, well, maybe. I don't know that I can say I am an ultimate chocolate lover. Like, I don't know that I go out, I never buy a Snickers bar or like a Mars bar or anything like that. But at the end of a good meal, I love a little something sweet. And that something sweet 9 times out of 10 is a piece of chocolate.
Amazing. Wow.
But now I
so. Amazing. Wow, you are full of stories. So from cordon bleu to chocolate to cowboys to kind of cooking with cannabis, and actually the show on Netflix as well. So how did you all of a sudden then go from that kind of training and becoming an expert in these little things to making cannabis one of your specialties? And like, you know, what was it that made you think, I'm going to start doing this next?
Well, I go where the universe brings me. And people believe in whatever they're going to believe in, but I know that I have a path in life. I'm just waiting to find it. And that path has a bunch of things that I've been introduced to. Like, so I went through Le Cordon Bleu and then Johnson and Wales and chocolate and pastry school, and basically any school that I could go to, I went to make sure I had a base of knowledge, not what they are, but a base. So finally, I moved to New York City to bring all these things together. I had partnered with a chef friend of mine, Wiley Dufresne, who is a world-renowned chef and pretty much, in my eyes, the godfather of molecular gastronomy. We partnered on a CBD project out in Brooklyn. And living in New York, I knew a bunch of the chefs of note, you could say. And I was actually on my way to go for a run and ran into one of those chefs of note. And I was like, Mark, yeah, on the corner. He lived, I didn't even know, less than a half a block away from me. So I was like, Mark. And he's like, Melissa? I was like, hey. So we caught up for 3 seconds and he asked if anyway, long story, he introduced me to a brand that represents chefs. They introduced me to the idea of going on the show, and I was the very, very, very last contestant that they accepted. They said they had a conversation with me and they were decided because they were on the fence, and I somehow called in at the right time. I had no clue the show was being filmed. I didn't know the groups. I didn't know the competitors. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know what network it'd be on. I knew nothing except for the fact that I connected with them. They were very nice, and I was going to California to bring my knives.
Wow, what a story. So, I mean, you just kind of landed on your feet with that one, and I guess it must have been such a way to kind of get creative with something new, like a new ingredient for you to explore, because there's so much to learn about, you know, what happens in our bodies once we start to take CBD or once we start to consume cannabis. So what was that kind of journey like for you?
I take cannabis and CBD very seriously. I started out and I left a very lucrative private chef business and came into the cannabis world head on. And I read medical lectures every day. I still do twice a week, and I go to online courses. I go to used to go to in-person courses, and I mean, I am so regimented when it comes to this stuff because it's a medicine. You can overdose somebody, which they're not going to die from it, but it can cause things that are less desirable for somebody. But then when you want to bring in the creative side, which you rarely get to do on the like state regulated side of cannabis and CBD, more so cannabis than CBD. But when you do get that chance to be creative, like in my cookbook or on the show was the first of its kind, especially for this group. It was a very different concept. And even amongst all the craziness, there were still friends to be found and fun to be had. And I think we all realized that had we, if we could go back and do it again, like I wouldn't have made such a complex menu, and I always cook from my heart, and I wanted to do my family proud. Although I bet my grandmother, especially my Jewish grandmother, was probably rolling over being like, "Oh, Gavalt, what are you doing?" So,
Wow.
but you know, it was fun. It was challenging. It was different. There were things you don't see on camera and things you do see on camera. And it was, I think the only way that I can explain this, even though I'm not married, is like you have this anticipation building up to that day. It happens. And at the end of the day, you're like, what just happened? Because we had to film for 3 days. It was a 3-day span that we did that one episode. And, you know, you reshoot certain things, but the cooking was all very real. There were little things you don't see, like when we add in the medication and that. So for me, who I'm so regimented, but I have to be creative and I have to be this for the show and you have to do that. And then there's like a million cameras on you and you're sweating so bad, you feel like you just took a shower.
So that was Cook with Cannabis on Netflix, which came out earlier this year, for viewers in the UK. And then you've also been on the Food Network on Chopped. Am I right in that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
would you do it again? Is what I'm getting. Yeah, no, you've done 2 really big names now. You've done the Food Network and Netflix. These are things that people, you know, aspire to do, you know, from the get-go. So would you do it again?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. That's the only way you learn about yourself, is to put yourself out there, challenge yourself. And at the end, if you can't have a good laugh and you can't look back on an event as, I mean, it was a blessing, both of them. And regardless of how you do, you have to understand that when you are in that environment, it's exciting. It brings out something in you that being in a kitchen or being around your friends or being around your head chef, that it doesn't matter. There's no comparison
Mm-hmm.
to those types of challenges, and they are challenging. Holy cats! Don't let they're like, oh, I mean, I was definitely one of those, you know, couch viewers that I was like, God, I would have done this. But you get on the show, either one of them, and at a certain point, you just have to rely on your instincts.
Yeah.
But then sometimes, you know, your instincts, it, it's just, they shut off. It's just white noise and you're moving. You don't know what you're doing. And you're like, why did I do that? So
What was I going to ask you? Do you remember watching back your episodes? Like, or were you one of those people who was like, no, I can't watch myself on TV?
so I didn't watch my live of the Chop. Like the night that it aired, I didn't watch it. I waited for my brother to tell me whether or not I should be ashamed, scared. I was a wreck. I was so nervous. And he's like, Melissa. He's like, it's fine. So I actually watched it back in pieces, like minutes. I'd watch 5 minutes and stop and breathe and have a sip of wine and pretend I was fine. And it was fine. I had nothing to worry about. I laughed at myself and I was like, they didn't show the part where I tripped or where I fumbled a blender. I was like, this is amazing.
And
I didn't trip.
I have one more question
But
that I think a lot of people want to know about these cooking shows, whether it's Chopped or Cooked with Cannabis or Master Chef or Hell's Kitchen or whatever it might be. Does the food actually get eaten? Do people eat the food, the beautiful food that you spent hours saving over, or is it just thrown to the side or thrown away?
No, they eat everything. That's real.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, that's good because we don't like waste.
Yeah, no. I mean, granted, not everything, not like the whole plate, but at the end of shooting, people from the like cameras and whatnot, if they're super curious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like maybe 2 or 3 people came up and were curious. Like the person who I'm now really good friends with, who interviewed me to be on Chopped, she was curious to see how I did, so she came up and tasted my dishes and off camera, obviously.
Oh, wow. So with cooking with CBD and cooking with kind of other cannabis extracts or kind of full spectrum oils, whatever you want to use in the kitchen, what are the kind of things that you need to be aware of? You know, if for someone who might want to start experimenting at home, or for someone who might be looking into entering a competition or anything like that, you've gone through in the last couple of years, like what advice would you give people when they're starting out, the do's and don'ts?
Don't get frustrated. Remember trying to ride a bike for the first time. You get up and you fall. You get up and you fall and you get up and you fall. And then you get up and it makes sense. That's kind of how I went about cooking with CBD and any other extract for that matter. And I mean, an essential oil too. If you're cooking with a strong oil, like a lemon oil or an oregano oil or cinnamon oil, and you add too much, it is bad food. It tastes bad. Part of what I love about cooking the CBD in particular is that it's very therapeutic for me. I have broken both of my ankles and I still run. I have broken my hand from climbing. I don't know how many times, but this is my dominant hand. I use it every day. This helps me regulate my pain. And I had to bring that into the food that I was making because I don't take medicine, and if I have to, I don't do it well. So that was the mentality that I would have liked to have known, is that don't get ahead of yourself. Like, I would have sat myself aside and been like, Melissa, don't get ahead of yourself. Relax, breathe. It's cooking. Remember that. And find a recipe you know and you know well. I don't care if it's meatloaf, or if it's mashed potatoes, or if it's pancakes or peanut butter. I don't care. It's pick something you're so comfortable with either making or buying, and prepared sauces, like a prepared barbecue sauce or spaghetti sauce. Fine. I can even tell you how to infuse those products. It's just simply finding a comfort zone from which to build. And I like to give myself options. So I like telling people to choose breakfast, lunch, and dinner, one item. And that's where we start. And I think the easiest way to start is by doing a fat emulsification. Big word. All it means, chemically speaking, is to bring items together. So when you're making, you have oil and vinegar. All of a sudden, when you add in that fat, egg yolk, you add in like a Dijon mustard is a great emulsifier. Something of that nature. When you put it in, it brings the oil and vinegar together in a way that they wouldn't have naturally come together. So you have to also bring in, when you're cooking, you have an unexpected element. You have a medicine, essentially, that's the way I look at it, going into your food. But that medicine has a taste. That medicine has a volatile nature about it, which means you don't want to cook that, because you can cook out a large percentage of the medicine, which means essentially if you were to pour a glass of alcohol and let it evaporate overnight, you're not going to go back and drink. You have nothing to drink. It's evaporated. It's the same thing, is that if you're evaporating the nature of what you're actually trying to put in there, there's little tricks. So I like to say I eat peanut butter out of the jar, hummus out of the fridge with a spoon. There's a few things that I'm not necessarily proud of, but do often. And those are really easy to infuse. And so if I'm working with a cannabis or CBD oil, I first figure out, I know this is a lot of information, but early on, easy way to think about dosing. I like to pull out a portion of whatever, your peanut butter. So I'm not going to infuse the whole jar. So what I'm actually going to do is take 4 tablespoons out of there. But I do everything by weight. I like by weight because it's the most accurate thing you're ever going to do. So let's say you have an ounce of peanut butter. In that 1 ounce, I then figure I have 2 servings. And those 2 servings, then I'm going to cut that in half and half. And then I go to look on my, in this case, I would be using a neutral, means no flavoring. A lot of CBD oils on the market are cinnamon, orange, lavender, mint. Be careful, because whatever flavor of that oil, you are then going to add it into your peanut butter in this case. So cinnamon peanut butter actually isn't that bad, but the cinnamon's a little strong for my taste. So I use plain. And I have all sorts of CBD oils. I think in my house right now, I have and mine, because I'm allergic to coconut, are all grapeseed oil or olive oil based products. And I have an olive oil, I have like a dark olive oil, a light olive oil, orange, lemon, No, I used all the cinnamon and I have lavender because it's too floral for me. So I take the neutral one and I look at the side. There should always be a dosing panel somewhere. If it doesn't have that on there, don't get it. Don't use it. It's as simple as that, because you don't know what you're putting in your body. Would you get an ibuprofen or ibuprofen, or however anybody pronounces it, is that when you get that, would you buy a bottle of medicine that just said, we think you take 3?
No, of course not.
Never. I'm not going to pop 3 pills of whatever. So you're not going to squeeze 3 things of whatever. So think about the dosing that way. If it says 1 serving of this oil equals 5 milligrams, I personally think that's a great place to start. It's on the low, very low end. I like anywhere 20 to 35, depending how my joints feel, addition. So I would say, okay, I know 1 of those droppers. Typically speaking, they should give you a dropper. If it doesn't come with a dropper, my recommendation is going to a pharmacy and buying your own.
Yeah, and you can get the disposable ones as well that you can like take off or whatever.
I always get disposable, and if it's a glass one, I'll maybe use it twice, but I don't like to use it twice because residual builds up in there. A lot of people will argue that fact, but it's a tiny little vial, and I am not going to sit there and wash it every single time, because at that point, then I do it so often and I recycle them always and I use them, as much as I can, but let's be realistic. You can get all the recyclables you want, and I don't like to mix the flavors and the oils versus the tinctures versus what I make. So I would recommend going and getting a marked dropper. With markings on there, so you know how much like a milliliter or a whatever is, because again, you want accurate. When a recipe says add a teaspoon of coriander, if you add a tablespoon of coriander, it's going to be a lot different. So then you add that in and you have to mix. The girls in my kitchen are probably so annoyed with me years later that I'm like, the key to this is mixing. Mix until your arm feels like it's going to fall off, because you want to make sure that it's as thoroughly combined as you can, because you want to leave nothing in the container left behind. Essentially, you're leaving money in dosage in that container. Yeah. So there goes your money and there goes the medicine that you spent the money on. So try and get little spatulas, are like 99 cents at the store. Little plastic spatulas. Those are, I don't even know how many I have in my house. So those are the keys that I would say. Droppers, spatulas. You can get a scale on Amazon for, a good one with shipping, probably $20 US. So it's a spatula, and as far as oils go, I like working with oils when I'm speaking culinary, when I'm adding it into food product. So that's why I tend to go more towards that, because it's a natural seam. Food is food. I keep these in my kitchen. I have a whole cabinet filled of just CBD, and it's an herb. Why not keep it in with my herbs?
So you were telling me before about your kind of edible developments. So tell us a little bit about that before we finish up, because it sounds like it's definitely something that you're super passionate about, but it's also something that's quite, challenging to kind of throw yourself into. So tell us a little bit about developing cannabis edibles, and what you're doing specifically.
Sure. I looked at my recipes I look at recipes and I never use one twice. I can't. A lot of the time I write recipes for other people, which means it's then theirs. So I use them as reference points. And I say, okay, I did that, but what did I like about it? let's say I picked a blueberry loaf to make. And, but when it comes to the blueberry loaf, I am not going to take my first try at this and infuse it, because I don't know if it's going to work at that altitude or any other factor. It doesn't matter. So I make it uninfused. That then sits as my gold standard. And I want people to recognize that. And that should be the best of the best. And if it's not, go back and make it again and tweak it. Once I get my gold standard, I then go to the infusing part. It's the same thing. How many, well, first of all, I look at what kind of fat I'm using. Is it a butter or an oil? And in this case, I actually use the oil. And so then I can choose my product that I'm going to infuse appropriately. So I chose a neutral flavored oil, and I then know what my dosage is of that. I figure out how many servings are going to be in one baked good. So this baked good is 10 servings. Great. I can take 10, multiply it by however many milligram dosages I want per piece, and then add that amount in. It's just that simple. Well, it's not that simple. There's other steps I take for the complete accuracy, but at home, I think that's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Start low, go slow, start easy, even numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go until we reach the product we like the best. And I have done that for many, many brands. And my brand that I developed here, it's under the Grove. I developed that. It was like my baby from the ground up. They gave me a hard hat, and I built the kitchen to build the shelves, to stock the shelves, to write the recipes, to do the nutritional facts, to teach the team, and help with the packaging, and then hand it over.
Wow, congratulations. That sounds like something that's really from the ground up is always so exciting. So well done you. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, and thank you so much for the recipes that you're going to be doing for us as well over the 3 days for Boxpo USA. I think we're going to do a dessert and a side dish. That's what we talked about, wasn't it?
I love, love, love the holidays. And I know a lot of the holidays are going to be different for many this year, but that doesn't mean that you can't at least have fun with your food in home in a smaller group. And who knows, a smaller group might be more open to adding this into a dish.
And sometimes
we'll see. Yeah, I'm excited.
Be good for everyone just de-stress with a little bit of CBD on the side of their meal. I think we all need that.
I love that. Eat these appetizers. No, I love it. So I'm hoping everybody likes it. I'm super passionate about it, but I also recognize there's a fear factor, and it shouldn't be there. Once you get over that first little hurdle of being scared, it's really fun.
And Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holidays are such a good kind of way to maybe introduce it to someone who wouldn't try it ordinarily, maybe someone who has that little kind of fear factor or the stigma, or oh, it's weed, it's cannabis. So yeah, that would you recommend it? You know, trying to get someone in your family to try it at Thanksgiving?
You know, I always offer it. But I recognize that people are always going to say no. That doesn't mean I'm going to not offer it. But that's me. That's my family. We're okay with that. Other events I've done, I wouldn't even bring it up.
Really?
So you really have to read your crowd. And I always make everything, everything except baked goods. I always make 2 baked goods, and one of the options is always some CBD product in there. But I like options, and with those little droppers and with the individual doses and the scale, you can take your gravy and medicate it if you want. You can take your cranberry sauce. You can take my pumpkin pie, which is a favorite. I actually do a pumpkin pie custard. So it's basically the filling that's lighter with no crust, and it's a delight. And wow. I mean, have fun. I think it's an easy thing to add it in. It's not that easy to take out. It's actually impossible to take out of a product. I say offer it. Read your crowd, offer it, do it in individual doses, get disposable little cups and let them stir it in for 2 minutes themselves and add it in. And honestly, it gives us something else to focus on besides the fact that all of our family can't be with us this year.
That's true. That's a really nice way to end our conversation. Thank you so much for, like I said, all the recipes and your interaction with us at Oxbow, and the many times we've spoken to each other for the cannabis. It's been really, really good chatting to you as always. You're an excellent chef, and we wouldn't have anyone else. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I love talking to and about and to anybody and about all this stuff. It's a passion. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
CBD is everywhere. Everybody's seen it, everybody's heard about it. Whether you're talking to your grandmother or your young niece, they all know about CBD. There's multiple product categories that we're looking at currently, including food, vape and cosmetics, and more recently beverages being one of the fastest moving sectors that we're seeing. But what's next? Cannabis is a very complex plant with over 300 compounds within it. Studies are limited. We've found that there's multiple benefits to the plant, and there's a lot of interest in it across the world as both a medicinal product, a health and wellness product, and also a recreational product. Many other compounds, such as CBG, which within the industry is becoming a well-known compound within the cannabis plant. CBC, terpenes are another aspect that are coming very much to the fore with regards to these types of products. We're seeing products that are being developed with higher bioavailability, and we're also seeing products that are infusing together different adaptogenic herbs, vitamins, minerals, all for the health and well-being of people within the sector, people that want to use these products. For the consumer, the education's reasonably limited. Health claims are not available on products due to the fact that we haven't got the necessary studies, but people are seeing a huge benefit and taking a huge interest in this wonderful plant.
As a product developer, very interested, obviously, in the cascading effects of the changing regulations around the world, the different approaches that different countries have taken with regards to deregulating certain cannabinoids, but keeping others still in a listed status. I come from Canada, where adult use is nationwide at this point. But at the same time, we have a very different approach towards CBD in Canada, where by treating it like other cannabinoids and not differentiating it in any way, it's made it very difficult for consumers to actually access cannabidiol. So we are very excited to be in the UK. We see that the regulatory system there is developing in a way that is going to allow for consumers to have greater access to better quality products. And we look forward to the regulations also opening up over time to allow us to work with more ingredients and create better products that innovate in essence.
How, from a kind of personal point of view, how has CBD and kind of the medical side of cannabis, I suppose, helped yourself personally?
Well, it completely changed me. I mean, I was bedridden. I was out of action. There was, I was one of these people who may have been heading for years and years of no change, and it really scared me, and it's kind of traumatic, the stories I hear now of people who are still stuck in that situation that I managed to get out of. So it's great to see how things have developed on the access line and for medical across the board.